Every day, you click it. The banner slides up, asks you to manage your preferences, hides reject all behind an extra tap, and disappears. European internet users collectively spend 575 million hours a year dismissing cookie banners. That is a €14 billion drain on the economy, and easily the most used piece of European software of the decade. The irony is that it doesn't even work. Studies of real-world banners show that nearly 90% of them break the very rules they were designed to follow, using deceptive patterns or vague language to get you to click. While Europe spent 10 years perfecting this continent-wide ritual of friction, the actual technology of the century was being built somewhere else. The United States and China constructed the core infrastructure of artificial intelligence. Now, in 2026, Brussels is scrambling. Faced with a massive dependency on foreign tech companies, the European Union wants to rapidly buy its way back into the global AI race. But you cannot set the rules for a technology you do not build, cannot power, and will not fund. Europe mistook regulating the surface for having a seat at the table. Look at the software layer. Europe has exactly one lab in the frontier AI conversation, Mistral, based right here in Paris. Despite genuine technical achievements, its strongest models land well behind the closed systems built by American market leaders. The math is worse when you look east. Europe's single champion also trails Chinese open-weight models. Labs like Zhipu and DeepSeek are shipping highly capable global top 5 AI models as free downloads. Europe cannot match what China is giving away. And there is a tier of capability above even that, the frontier models. These systems are so advanced in fields like cyber and bioresearch that they are treated as national security infrastructure. They are restricted like military munitions. On June 12th, a directive out of Washington forced Anthropic to globally shut down its Fable 5 and Mythos 5 models overnight. Europe is totally absent from this tier. It is lacking presence in the specific category of technology that has become an active instrument of state power. This deficit is the predictable output of 3 structural choices. First, Brussels regulates before it builds. The AI Act arrived as the world's first comprehensive AI rulebook, imposing heavy regulatory burdens on an industry the bloc doesn't actually lead. Second, the capital is not there. Europe lacks a deep, unified capital market. The concentrated late-stage funding rounds in the United States do not exist in Frankfurt or Paris. This chart shows the stark reality of AI funding. Across its entire life, Europe's flagship lab Mistral has raised roughly $3 billion. In a single round, OpenAI raised $122 billion. Top European engineers do the math. They board a flight to San Francisco or London, where the computational power, compensation, and capital actually are. The final bottleneck is entirely physical. Training these massive AI models requires hyperscale data centers, and those clusters demand enormous amounts of cheap electricity. After Germany's nuclear phase-out in 2023, grid and permitting bottlenecks compounded the problem. Today, European industry pays roughly double the electricity rates of the US. You cannot run a hyperscale training cluster on power that costs twice what your competitor pays. Technological innovation requires cheap capital and cheap power, and Europe's current structure forbids both. In response to this deficit, the European Commission launched the Invest AI initiative, promising to mobilize €20 billion for artificial intelligence over several years. This small block is Europe's €20 billion budget. The towering block represents 4 US hyperscalers spending a combined $700 billion in 2026 alone. One American tech company's annual spend is 10 times larger than Europe's entire multi-year gigafactory envelope. Defenders point to the Brussels effect, arguing that setting global regulations is a long-game strategy. But a rulebook is not a product. Setting global rules means nothing if your applied AI systems run on foreign models that Washington can turn off in 90 minutes. The contradiction of Europe's strategy is writing small, years-late grants to fix a dependency crisis, while leaving the heavy regulations, fragmented capital markets, and expensive energy policies untouched. True sovereignty requires treating open-weight models as strategic assets. A model run entirely on your own hardware is one no foreign directive can switch off. Achieving this means building genuine, European-owned computing infrastructure. And that requires treating the electrical grid and permitting processes as critical AI policy, because right now, they are the primary physical constraints. It also requires fixing the financial plumbing so a domestic lab can raise a frontier-scale round of funding without being forced to leave the continent. Europe has the researchers, the universities, and the industrial base. But until those physical and financial structures are fixed, the most used piece of European software will remain the cookie banner, a small, friction-filled interface asking for your consent to a digital world decided elsewhere.